sometimes when I'm driving, I think of things that would be good to say, so I'm gonna say them in a very safe driving kind of way. Thinking about the spiritual gifts that exist and the things I experience now are not what I used to experience. So in a way of kind of speaking to someone who has gifts already that are not yet developed, or they don't even know what those gifts are that they have, and just feel like they're perhaps far too eccentric or imaginative, or keep it quiet because maybe other people will judge them for what they're talking about. As far as like clairvoyant skills, I want to share that the beings we can connect to that are not visible, the non-physical teachers that exist with our not eyes, eyeballs, we're able to access whatever our highest vibrational frequency is at the time. And so there's a whole spectrum of vibration that we see in the world, as an example. So I have been, when I worked in hospice, I've been in people's homes that are, one could possibly describe them as really deeply impoverished, or hoarding, deeply mentally ill, filthy, and this is of course not everyone, but I've been in places that you can tell that there is a difference between the way this person is experiencing life than the way I experience life, which is not a judgment. It's usually a reflection of what they've been through and their traumas that are just kind of spilling out in their lives, because our insides match our outsides. And so I guess I would say it's the same on a spiritual level. So if you're kind of living in a dark place, you're experiencing depression, anxiety, dealing with trauma, stuffing things in, not being authentic to yourself, and you also have these gifts, peace be with you, my friend, because it is really, really difficult to have these gifts and then be in a dark place, which is usually where we are, to clear out everything eventually. There's kind of like a little torture chamber in your brain. And so the things that you can see with those clair skills are really unpleasant, and or those things you can kind of hear that you think are your own thoughts, that are really just a peanut gallery of judgment and anger and frustration and all directed at you and other people. That is also going to match where you're at. So if you're going through something really big and dark, and you have those skills, you're going to see and hear things, maybe not with your eyeballs, but your third eye for sure. You close your eyes, horrible scenarios playing out in your head of potential futures that are just catastrophic. And a lot of people call that anxiety, but it's taken a lifetime for me to figure out that those are just like possible things that could happen that match where you're at emotionally at that time. So if you're kind of in a dark place, all your perception of things around you is going to be dark. And if you have clair skills, you could connect to spirits or beings that are also at that vibration. So for me, I think the darkest clair point of my life was when I was working in hospice, because I was connecting to all of these spirits, and in part because I was going into facilities and people's homes and didn't understand how to protect myself energetically. And so I was kind of just connecting to whatever as like a beacon. I'm kind of like a lighthouse for spirits. And so I would get like lost, dark, angry beings that would be like, and like, come home with me, and kind of mess with my head while I was sleeping. And or like once there was like a dead body that fell on me while I was sleeping that woke me up and like choked me because it was so heavy, clunk on my chest. And there's Grand Central Station in my bedroom at night with these spirits, and it was because that's the place I was at. And so I was attracting all of these dark beings, and I really wish someone had told me that, that if I wanted those things to stop, instead of maybe just going to the crystal store and trying to figure out how to grid my room in a way that would keep me safe, instead perhaps work on my own vibratory frequency so that I could, attract something that was a higher vibration, I suppose. So when I talk about my awakening and connecting to non-physical teachers, I wanted to add that there are tricksters that exist, that people, when they connect to them and they have those clear skills, they're like, I connected to this being and it's true and amazing and all this stuff. But the truth is, it's going to match where you're at. So you have to keep your vessel clear and keep yourself well. And if you don't, you may attract something that's a match to that maybe is not fully in your best interest, or is potentially trying to screw with your head for enjoyment. Because for as much as we see with our physical eyes, there's so much more we don't see with our physical eyes. So just open your mind up to, there are things that are not here for your best self. And then there are many things that are here to help you, but you can't reach them if you're in your dark gunk. So that's why the shadow work's super important, because you got to clear up the space for the light. So I'm talking a lot about shadow work in some of my other videos. It's my intention, because I know that most people are in a state of dealing with their shadow. But I thought it was really important to note, for people who have those skills, I think we're mostly excited to connect to something. And when you connect to something, it may not be the something you want to connect to. I'm just saying. I got some stories from my 20s when I was just messing around with things I was drawn to, but also curious and cocky. I think I was cocky, like all young people are. I got this, it's cool, I got all the power in the world to channel. And then you get some creepy stuff, and then you could go to sleep for 20 years and not explore your spirituality because it scared the crap out of you. For instance, it sounded oddly specific, didn't it? It's because it is. I'll tell some stories, but the point is, when scary stuff happens that turns you off to the unseen, when there's actually a lot of really cool stuff that you can grow from and have access to and help from, you just have to make sure that you're matching the frequency you want to attract. So it's really hard to reach angelic beings when you're in the depths of despair. That's why people really, really talk about how hell is not a place after this. It can be a place that's very much here, and it's very much here when we're detached from the divine. And the divine is a really high frequency, and if you're in a dark place, you can't reach it, you can't see it. It's not a metaphor, it's real. And so it's really important to make sure you're taking care of you. I don't know why I said it like that. I am not from the East Coast at all. Boise, Idaho is where I'm from. So anyway, give it a think. And sometimes even if it's for brief periods, if you want to, say your goal is, I want to talk to an angelic being. Well, they're a really high frequency. They're made of light and rainbows, basically. And so they're from divine source, seraphim energy. And so you don't want to intend on reaching them if you've just been listening to Depeche Mode and The Cure all day, which, no shade to that, because that was my entire childhood and adolescence is listening to that. But you're not going to be able to reach it that way. But you can raise your frequency by taking a salt bath, smudging yourself with sage, working with sound bowls to change the vibration of your frequency to a higher one from like a lower state, opening up your crown where you can receive it. Those are frequencies. You can look them up on YouTube of how to like attune your body to the crown chakra. Then going into a meditative space to try to connect to it will allow you to do that a little bit more. And one of the ways that presented itself to me when I was younger was through music. I didn't know that I was like staying in the same frequency, listening to dark stuff all the time. There was a period of Marilyn Manson, it's true. But then I'd listen to something randomly, like a Josh Groban song that really connected to me, that I really liked the tone of his voice. And then my whole head would feel tingly and my arms would have goosebumps and I'd feel like I was high. And that was like a frequency shift. And I didn't realize that that's exactly what it was. So if you want to connect to something, try to raise your frequency first to what you want to connect to. And if you want to connect to something dark, you could probably listen to some dark stuff and play with a Ouija board and be terrified. But I do not recommend that.